Hi, Sue. Thanks for joining me for today's Bible reading. It's for March 25th, Judges 19 to 21 from the World English Bible. And this is the last reading for the book of Judges. And I'm going to say, yay! And I'll explain to you why afterwards. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book after I get through today's reading. So I'm glad you joined me. Chapter 19, verse 1. In those days, when there was no king in Israel, there was a certain Levite living on the farther side of the hill country of Ephraim, who took for himself a concubine out of Bethlehem, Judah. His concubine played the prostitute against him and went away from him to her father's house to Bethlehem, Judah, and was there for 4 months. Her husband arose and went after her to speak kindly to her and to bring her again, having his servant with him and a couple of donkeys. She brought him into her father's house, and when the father of the young lady saw him, he rejoiced to meet him. His father-in-law, the young lady's father, kept him there, and he stayed with him 3 days. So they ate and drank and stayed there. On the 4th day they got up early in the morning, and he rose to depart. The young lady's father said to his son-in-law, "Strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and afterward you shall go on your way." So they sat down, ate, and drank, both of them together. Then the young lady's father said to the man, "Please be pleased to stay all night, and let your heart be merry." The man rose up to depart, but his father-in-law urged him, and he stayed there again. He arose early in the morning on the 5th day to depart, and the young lady's father said, "Please strengthen your heart and stay until the day declines." And they both ate. When the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law, the young lady's father, said to him, "Behold, now the day draws toward evening. Please stay all night. Behold, the day is ending, and tomorrow go on your way early, that you may go home." But the man wouldn't stay that night, but he rose up and departed, and toward Jebus, also called Jerusalem. With him were a couple of saddled donkeys. I'm sorry, this is a little cumbersome to read. It has like periods and sentence fragments where I don't expect them. But anyway, I digress. Verse 11. When they were by Jebus, the day was far spent, and the servant said to his master, "Please come and let us turn aside into the city of Jebusites and stay in it." His master said to him, "We won't turn aside into the city of a foreigner that is not of the children of Israel, but we will pass over to Gibeah." He said to his servant, "Come and let us draw near to one of the places, and we will lodge in Gibeah or in Ramah." So they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. They turned aside there to go in to stay in Gibeah. He went in and sat down in the street of the city, for there was no one who took them into their house to stay. Behold, an old man came from his work out of the field at evening. Now the man was from the hill country of Ephraim, and he lived in Gibeah. He lifted up his eyes and saw the wayfaring man in the street of the city. And the old man said, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" He said to him, "We are passing from Bethlehem, Judah, to the farther side of the hill country of Ephraim. I am from there, and I went to Bethlehem, Judah. I am going to Yahweh's house, and there is no one who was taken me into his house. Yet there is both straw and feed for our donkeys, and there is bread and wine also for me, and for your servant, and for the young man who is with your servants. There is no lack of anything." The old man said, "Peace be to you. However, let me supply all your needs. Just don't sleep in the street." So he brought them into his house and gave the donkeys fodder. Then they washed their feet and ate and drank. As they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, certain base fellows, surrounded the house, beating at the door, and they spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, "Bring out the man who came into your house, that we may have sex with him." The man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brothers, please don't act so wickedly. Since this man has come into my house, don't do this folly. Behold, here is my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out now. Humble them and do with them what seems good to you, but to this man don't do any such folly." But the men wouldn't listen to him. So the man laid hold of the concubine and brought her out to them, and they had sex with her and abused her all night until morning. When the day began to dawn, they let her go. Then the woman came in the dawning of the day and fell down at the door of the man's house where her lord was until it was light. Her lord rose up in the morning and opened the doors of the house and went out to go his way. And behold, the woman, his concubine, had fallen down at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. He said to her, "Get up and let's be going." But no one answered. Then he took her up on the donkey, and the man rose up and went to his place. When he had come into his house, he took a knife, cut up his concubine, and divided her limb by limb into 12 pieces, and sent her throughout all the borders of Israel. It was so that all who saw it said, "Such a deed has not been done or seen from the day that the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt to this day. Consider it, take counsel, and speak." Then all the children of Israel went out, and the congregation was assembled as one man from Dan even to Beersheba, with the land of Gilead to Yahweh at Mitzvah. The chiefs of all the people, even of all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 footmen who drew sword. Now the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Israel had gone up to Mizpah. The children of Israel said, "Tell us, how did this wickedness happen?" The Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, answered, "I came into Gibeah that belongs to Benjamin, I and my concubine, to spend the night. The men of Gibeah rose up against me and surrounded the house by night. They intended to kill me, and they raped my concubine, and she is dead. I took my concubine and cut her in pieces and sent her throughout the hill country of the inheritance of Israel, for they have committed lewdness and folly in Israel. Behold, the children of Israel, all of you, give here your advice and counsel." All the people arose as one man, saying, "None of us will go to his tent, neither will any of us turn to his house. But now this is the thing which we will do in Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot, and we will take 10 men of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, and 100 of 1,000, and 1,000 out of 10,000, to get food for the people, that they may do when they come to Gibeah of Benjamin, according to all the folly that they have worked in Israel." So the men of Israel were gathered against the city, knit together as one man. The tribes of Israel sent men throughout all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What wickedness is this that is happening among you? Now therefore deliver up the men, the base fellows who are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death, and put away evil from Israel." But Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brothers, the children of Israel. The children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities to Gibeah, to go out to battle against the children of Israel. The children of Benjamin were counted on that day out of the cities, 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who were counted 700 chosen men. Among all the soldiers there were 700 chosen men who were left-handed. Every one of them could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. The men of Israel, besides Benjamin, were counted 400,000 men who drew sword. All these were men of war. The children of Israel arose, went up to Bethel, and asked counsel of God. Now they're getting smart. They asked, "Who shall go up for us first to battle against the children of Benjamin?" Yahweh said, "Judah first." The children of Israel rose up in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. The men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin, and the men of Israel set the battle in array against them at Gibeah. The children of Benjamin came out of Gibeah, and on that day destroyed 22,000 of the Israelite men down to the ground. The people, the men of Israel, encouraged themselves and set the battle again in array in a place where they set themselves in array the first day. The children of Israel went up and wept before Yahweh until evening, and they asked of Yahweh, saying, "Shall I again draw near to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother?" Yahweh said, "Go up against him." The children of Israel came near against the children of Benjamin the second day. Benjamin went out against them out of Gibeah the second day, and destroyed down to the ground of the children of Israel again 18,000 men. All these drew the sword. Then all the children of Israel and all the people went up and came to Bethel and wept and sat there before Yahweh and fasted that day until evening. Then they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Yahweh. The children of Israel asked Yahweh for the ark of the covenant. Oh, wait. Back up. Verse 27. The children of Israel asked Yahweh, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, Shall I again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? Yahweh said, Go up, for tomorrow I will deliver him into your hand. Israel set ambushes around Gibeah. The children of Israel went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day and set themselves in array against Gibeah as at other times. The children of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city, and they began to strike and kill of the people, as at other times, in the highways, of which one goes up to Bethel, and the other to Gibeah, in the field about 30 men of Israel. The children of Benjamin said, They are struck down before us as at first. But the children of Israel said, Let us flee and draw them away from the city to the highways. All the men of Israel rose up out of their place and set themselves in array at Baal Tamar. Then the ambushers of Israel broke out of their place, even out of Merageba. 10,000 chosen men out of all Israel came over against Gibeah, and the battle was severe. But they didn't know that disaster was close to them. Yahweh struck Benjamin before Israel, and the children of Israel destroyed Benjamin that day, 25,100 men. All these drew the sword. So the children of Benjamin saw that they were struck, for the men of Israel yielded to Benjamin because they trusted the ambushers whom they had set against Gibeah. The ambushers hurried and rushed on Gibeah. Then the ambushers spread out and struck all the city with the edge of the sword. Now the appointed sign between the men of Israel and the ambushers was that they should make a great cloud of smoke rise up out of the city. The men of Israel turned in the battle, and Benjamin began to strike and kill the men of Israel, about 30 persons, for they said, Surely they are struck down before us as in the first battle. But when the cloud began to arise up out of the city in a pillar of smoke, the Benjamites looked behind them, and behold, the whole city went up in smoke to the sky. The men of Israel turned, and the men of Benjamin were dismayed, for they saw that disaster had come on them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel to the way of the wilderness, but the battle followed hard after them. Those who came out of the cities destroyed them in the middle of it. They surrounded the Benjamites. They surrounded the Benjamites, chased them, and trod them down at their resting place as far as near Gibeah toward the sunrise. 18,000 men of Benjamin fell, all those who were men of valor. They turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and they gleaned 5,000 men of them in the highways, and followed hard after them to Gibeon, and struck 2,000 men of them, so that all who fell that day of Benjamin were 25,000 men who drew the sword. All these were men of valor. But the 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and stayed in the rock of Rimmon 4 months. The men of Israel turned again on the children of Benjamin, and struck them with the edge of the sword, both the entire city and the livestock, and all that they found. Moreover, all the cities which they found, they set on fire. Last chapter. Chapter 21. Now the men of Israel had sworn in Mitzvah, saying, None of us will give his daughter to Benjamin as a wife. The people came to Bethel and sat there until evening before God, and lifted their voices and wept severely. They said, Yahweh, the God of Israel, why has this happened in Israel, that there should be one tribe lacking in Israel today? On the next day the people rose early and built an altar there and offered burnt offering and peace offering. The children of Israel said, Who is there among all the tribes of Israel who didn't come up to the assembly of Yahweh? For they had made a great oath concerning him who didn't come up to Yahweh to Mitzvah, saying, He surely shall be put to death. The children of Israel grieved for Benjamin their brother, and said, There is one tribe cut off from Israel today. How shall we provide wives for those who remain, since we have sworn by Yahweh that we will not give them of our daughters to wives? They said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel who didn't come up to Yahweh from Mitzvah? Behold, no one came up from Jabesh Gilead to the camp of the assembly. From when the people were counted, behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead there. The congregation sent 12,000 of the most valiant men there and commanded them, saying, go and strike the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, with the women and the little ones. This is a thing that you shall do. You shall utterly destroy every male and every woman who has lain with a man. They found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins who had not known a man by lying with him, and they brought them into the camp at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. The whole congregation sent and spoke to the children of Benjamin who were in the rock of Rimmon, and proclaimed peace to them. Benjamin returned at that time, and they gave them the women whom they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead. There still weren't enough for them. The people grieved for Benjamin because Yahweh had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said, how shall we provide wives for those who remain, since the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? They said, there must be an inheritance for those who are escaped of Benjamin, that a tribe not be blotted out from Israel. However, we may not give them wives of our own daughters, for the children of Israel had sworn, saying, cursed is he who gives a wife to Benjamin. They said, behold, there is a feast of Yahweh from year to year in Shiloh, which is on the north of Bethel, on the east side of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem, and on the south of Lebonah. They commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, go and lie in wait in the vineyards, and see, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance the dances, then come out of the vineyards, and each man catch a wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. It shall be, when their fathers and their brothers come to complain to us, that we shall say to them, grant them graciously to us, because we didn't take for each man his wife in battle, neither did you give them to them, otherwise you would now be guilty. The children of Benjamin did so, and took wives for themselves according to their number, of those who danced, whom they carried off. They went and returned to their inheritance, built cities and lived in them. The children of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe and to his family, and they each went out from there to his own inheritance. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did that which was right in his own eyes. What a fitting way to end this book. I said at the beginning, this was a difficult book for me. I've read it so many times. You may have heard me say you may have heard me say, I've read the 1 year Bible almost every year from 19, probably 87, all the way through to a couple years ago. So I've read this, and yes, I missed days here and there. I probably missed a couple years in there. Um, but this time reading through was so difficult. And I don't know, maybe some days it was my own state of mind. When I re-listen to them, it just sounds like monotone and no enthusiasm, no anointing. Just, I'll probably redo them next year. But for some reason, I don't fully understand. This was a difficult book for me to read this time. Some parts of it were really kind of monotonous and just lists, but they don't usually bother me too much either. What are your thoughts on this book? I want to talk a little bit about the judges, though. I have a little article here in front of me that talks a little bit about them. This is from pray.com. It's just an internet search. It's not deep research here. But I want to give a quick little overview of these judges. So just kind of just a little look back for educational purposes. Kind of a little review of this the main part of this book, which are these 12 judges. So you have, they were from all different tribes. Some are minor, some are more significant. I'm just giving some highlights from this article. You had Othniel, who was the nephew or brother of Caleb. He was the first judge, and he freed Israel from King Cushan Rishathaim. And he's the one who he got his wife because he conquered the city of Dibir. Then you have Ehud. He's the one that destroyed King Eglon. Remember, he's the one that he put a blade through his stomach. Eglon was very overweight, and he put a blade into his stomach, and it literally disappeared in his stomach. So that's how he brought freedom. And I said the other day, these judges, they weren't really judges in the way we think of them. They were military leaders called by God. Okay, number 3 was Shamgar, and it says he killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. And I'm not saying everything about him, I'm just saying some highlights here. And then you have, I'll call her the beautiful Deborah. And she was the only female judge, it says. She was also a prophetess. And you have the Song of Deborah in the book about her. And then, of course, you had the other woman that was in that same story. What was her name? Darn, I can't think of her name right now. But she helped save the day in that battle. Then you have Gideon, probably one of the few that's known, who had both Gideon and Samson, the more well-known ones. But Gideon, it says, had a miraculous birth, called to free Israel from the Midianites, and he's the one who defeated their armies with just 300 men. And they offered to make him king, but he refused. Then we have Tola, who it says became a judge after the death of Abimelech, who was an evil son of Gideon. And he was from the tribe of Issachar, and he led Israel for 23 years. Then you have Jair, who his claim to fame is that he had 30 sons who rode 30 donkeys and ruled 30 towns. Then we had Jephthah, a mighty warrior who made a foolish vow and had to sacrifice his daughter. Ibzan, who had 30 sons and 30 daughters. He judged for 7 years. And Elon, who is the judge we know the least about, it says. He was in the tribe of Zebulun. And then Abdon, who it says was probably very wealthy. He had 40 sons, 30 grandsons who rode 70 donkeys. And then we have Samson, and most people know about him pretty well. We also had this, I'm going to tell you this one little aspect about the book. Let me find it here. This occurred over the course of about 336 years. And this is a reference from, looks like it just says www.bible.ca. And so from the years 1350 to 1014 BC. So 336 years or so that judges ruled in Israel. So I find that pretty interesting. I'm glad the book's over. As I said, I don't really even know why. Maybe it was just my state of mind this year reading through it. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Feel free to comment. And like I said, probably next year when I go through again, I'll redo some of those because to me they just weren't very good. And there are days when I'm reading when if I'm tired, it's just sometimes hard to get through and put any enthusiasm in the reading. It's, you're not a robot, and some days are better than others. But I really would love some comments. Feel free to use the email address in the description too if you have prayer requests, thoughts, comments, and there are other links in the description of the video too. So Till next time, join me for the book of Ruth starting tomorrow. God bless you. Thanks again.